always thought I'd be the one walking my son down the aisle, even when he was just a little boy, clumsily dragging his teddy bear across the floor and asking questions no one had answers to. Why is the sky blue? Where do hugs go? When you stop? I imagined this moment, his wedding, his day. And me, proud and beside him like I had always planned to be. I imagined straightening his collar, maybe even sharing a small laugh to calm his nerves, telling him he was ready, that we were ready, but none of those thoughts prepared me for what actually happened, because when the music started and the soft murmur of guests turned into a hush, it wasn't my hand my son reached for. It was his stepfather's, and when I looked into my son's eyes, expecting that flicker of connection only a father and son share, I found a smile, a genuine, peaceful, happy smile, but it wasn't directed at me. It was for him, since he's more of a father, my son had said earlier that morning, as if he were simply stating the weather, and I smiled. I smiled so wide my cheeks trembled and my molars ached, but inside, I shattered. It wasn't always like this. I was 24 when I held my son for the first time, his tiny fists curled, his face red from the screaming, his lungs apparently much stronger than the doctors had anticipated. He looked like me, dark curls, furrowed brows, and already, somehow, a kind of defiance in his tiny jaw. I remember laughing and crying all at once, the nurse asking if I was okay. I told her, yeah, he made me a father. Those first few years were hard. Money was tight, time was tighter, and sometimes love just wasn't enough between me and his mother. We tried to make it work, God knows we did, but eventually the late nights turned into cold mornings, and the cold mornings turned into signed papers and scheduled weekends. It was supposed to be fair, 50-50, I'd have him 1 week, she'd have him the next. But life never respects paperwork. I picked up overtime. She moved across the city. The weeks turned into weekends. The weekends turned into calls, then missed calls. Then silence, and that silence it stretched for years. I blamed myself for a long time. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. Maybe I didn't fight the court orders with enough rage. Maybe if I had bought him that bike he wanted or said no a little less, or I love you a little more, he'd have stayed closer. But then came him Brian, my ex-wife's new husband. He came into the picture when my son was about 10. I remember hearing about him through a secondhand message. Mom has a friend over a lot now. He brought a dog. That dog ended up becoming their family dog. It got more years in that home than I did. Brian was the guy who showed up to soccer games when I couldn't get out of work. He was the one who helped my son build his science fair project when my calls went unanswered. He taught him how to tie a tie, ride a bike, cook eggs without burning them, and slowly, my son's stories stopped including me, they started including him. At first, I hated Brian. I mean, how could I not? He was living my life, being called Dad in the same house I used to sleep in, getting to do the things I only ever dreamed of doing. But then I met him. And it made everything worse. Because he wasn't a bad guy, he wasn't arrogant, he wasn't trying to erase me. He never stopped my son from calling me, he never belittled me or made me feel smaller than I already felt. He was just there. Present, reliable, good, and I was a memory, a voice over the phone. A missed birthday turned into a belated gift sent through the mail. My son was 15 the last time he called me Dad without hesitation. I remember it because I held onto it like a lifeline, and I knew the shift had already happened. He loved Brian more. Not because I was evil or wrong or toxic, but because Brian was there, still, when the wedding invitation came, with my full name printed under parents of the groom. My heart leapt. Maybe this was my moment, my redemption. My proof that even if I wasn't perfect, even if I wasn't his everyday, I was still his dad. I got a new suit, practiced my speech, went over stories from his childhood, memorizing every detail in case anyone asked. I rehearsed my toast in front of a mirror until my voice cracked from emotion. And the morning of the wedding, I got up earlier than I needed to be near him, to soak in whatever time I could. He was nervous, I could tell, fidgeting with his cufflinks. He smiled when I entered the room, gave me a hug, a real one. The kind that squeezes your ribs and doesn't let go too fast. We chatted. Small talk, laughter, that familiar rhythm I hadn't felt in years. Then I said it, "You ready, kiddo? I'll be there, right next to you, walking you down," and that's when he paused. It wasn't long, barely a breath, but in that moment, my chest went still. Then came the words, "I was actually gonna ask Brian. I mean, he's kind of been more of a father, you know? Since forever. He didn't mean it as a dagger, I know that now. Maybe even then. He said it gently, respectfully, maybe even guiltily, but he said it, and I smiled. God, I smiled. Of course, I said, that makes sense. He'd be honored, I'm sure. I excused myself soon after. Said I had to help the ushers or double-check the guest list. But I went to the parking lot, sat in my car, and stared at the steering wheel like it owed me an apology. I don't know how long I sat there, but long enough for the ceremony to start. When I finally walked in, the music was swelling, the guests all stood, and there he was, my son in arm with Brian, tears in both their eyes, and I smiled, because even when your heart is breaking, sometimes love looks like letting go. After the ceremony, he came up to me, hugging me again, thanking me for being there, for supporting him. He said, "I know today must have been hard, but I want you to know I love you." And I believed him, because love doesn't always come wrapped in the way we want it. Sometimes it comes in a folded program with someone else's name listed first. Sometimes it comes in silence, in sacrifice, in showing up even when your place was given to someone else. I raised a son who knew love, who could give love, who sewed in the man who stepped in when I couldn't, and maybe that's not the legacy I hoped for, but it's still one worth being proud of. At the wedding, my son asked his stepdad to walk him down the aisle since he's more of a father, and I smiled and said, I wouldn't have it any other way, even if it broke me, even if I was smiling through tears, because real love, real fatherhood sometimes means putting their happiness above your pride, even when it costs you everything you dreamed of.